Arts, the Executive Director, and we are thrilled that you could join us for another episode of our Arts Center Live. As always, we have a very special guest with us. Today's guest is the artist whose work is in our La Petite gallery for this month, Peggy Keigley. Hi, Peggy. How are you?
Hyla, how are you?
I am great, and we are so glad that you could join us today. I actually have a piece of Peggy's work behind me, and what you probably can't tell is it's so realistic it looks like a photo, but it's all fabric. This is an extraordinary example of modern quilting. So Peggy, tell us a little bit about the exhibition, sort of your concept when you were putting it together and some of the pieces that you've included.
Well, I really started to put it together 2 years ago when I got accepted to do the show. Well, it was a little less than 2 years ago, but it really got my excitement at a full tilt. And from that point forward, I just really wanted to stretch myself, expand, learn new techniques, and try to come up with some of the best pieces I could possibly come up with. So that's kind of how it really got me to a fever pitch, just getting that acceptance.
I've noted there are a lot of animals. We brought up an elephant, and there's some beautiful horses. What I find really compelling about the exhibition is the fact that when they are creatures, it really feels as though they are looking at you, that these creatures have a soul within them. Was that part of your intention, or was that simply what evolved when you were working on the projects?
No, that is exactly what I was hoping to achieve. Because if you look at this elephant, what I love, like when I looked at this image, I just thought, here's this huge, very intelligent animal in a very wild country. And there are so many dangers out there, but yet they're capable of many of the same emotions that we are: love and caring and nurturing and and certainly in their case, staying alive and, making sure they have a healthy habitat to survive in. So I think it's so much is going on there that it just really speaks to me. And the beauty, I think, of fabric and sewing is people ask me, well, what do you do? Well, what I do is I paint, only my paint is fabric and sewing. And the thing is with that was when you bring those two things together, it brings a little bit of a three-dimensional hint to it, and hence a little more intensity. So that's what I love. So I love this picture, really, and I love it because the elephant's eyes are very kind, and they're very intrigued about something.
And I noted you have some beautiful pieces that are horses as well, too, and they also seem to be looking out and connecting with the person who's looking at them. It's extraordinary. I go in every day and do a circle around just to see the pieces. They are really quite beautiful. Of all of the pieces in your exhibition, which would you say is your favorite, or which would be some of your favorites?
Well, I think this guy here is definitely one of my favorites. I love the zebra. Zebras are really fun to do. It's got a little bit of an abstract hint to it, but they're fun to do because you're kind of forced into a monochromatic mode. They're black and white, and there's tons of grays though. And so there's a lot of variety that you get to work from, but it's all kind of monochromatic and the background is green, but they're fun. That was a really fun. I used a couple of little different approaches there. So, and in some cases, like when you put down a piece of fabric, it can sometimes you can only make it fit so right. And then sometimes it can have kind of a blocky look or an unfinished look. And that's where you can get in there with your sewing machine and draw some, like for example, around the eyes of this elephant. Before I did the stitching, those eyes the fabric was kind of blocky looking. But you get in there with that sewing machine, and that's your paintbrush, and a very fine paintbrush at that. And you can really get those details to come alive.
Wow. As I said, I look at it and it's extraordinary. And I know that our friends who are with us right now, it's almost hard to really appreciate this work in fabric. You have to be able to look at it and see it. And of course, we always make
Yeah.
sure when we have modern quilting, textile exhibitions, because people inevitably want to touch them. It's just there is something about fabric. You know, it's the first thing we're wrapped in when we're babies. We just
Yeah.
respond to it in a really visceral way, and
Yeah.
so we are so thrilled to have this really incredible exhibit with these examples of modern quilting. Now, tell me a little bit. How did you get started doing this? I mean, you didn't wake up one day and say, "I'm going to create an elephant out of extraordinary fabric."
No, I didn't. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do that. As I mentioned before, I've been a sewer. I love to sew. Ever since I took my junior high school first class in sewing, I've been pretty much sewing on and off ever since, and a lot more when I got older. And I used to make quilts, and I loved making quilts. And when one day, and so I must have made about so many quilts. I used to give them to hospitals to, raffle off to make for charity.
Wow.
And I could only go so far with a million quilts. So I went to an art show one day and I saw a picture that was made out of fabric, and it was of a family at the beach. And it was so incredible, the contrast and the highlight that was so brought to life with fabric. And I just thought to myself, I would love to learn how to do that. I don't know that I can. I don't know that I'm really an artist, but I would love to learn. And so I just started to take a little tutorial actually on YouTube. And then I did my first little project and it came out really good. And I was very inspired. And so I just kept going and going. I'm not going to say it's a very easy craft. There's an awful lot you need to learn to start making your life easier, creating these things. There's a lot of innuendos and a lot of details and all those hidden things that you learn just by doing.
I mean, it's so realistic. Do you start with a photographic image, or is this something in your head that you're creating?
No, I start with a photograph most of the time, but I'm starting to do a lot of studying on abstract work, and I'm going to probably start veering away a little bit from that. But I start with a photo at this point. And what I do is I draw an outline, like in this elephant. What I did is I drew an outline of his ears, his head, his trunk, and where his tusks were. And then I said, okay, we're going to do the left ear. And then I went into my stash of like 4,000 fabrics. And I went to the gray zone and the beige, because there's a little beige and a little pink. And I pulled out about 40 pieces of different fabrics that would be able to blend all in that ear. So if you look at that, I think I ended up choosing about maybe 11 or 15 different grays. There's a couple of beiges. There's a couple of cream color fabrics, a little darker gray. So I just start cutting those into small pieces. This is one technique, but I cut them into like half-inch pieces, and I'm looking at the photo and I'm putting them on and I'm guided, and then I pin them on because I want to make, if I had to reevaluate and I just unpin them if it's not working. But it's just a lot like creating a painting. If you're working from a photo, that's what I'm doing. Only my medium is fabric pieces, and I'm pinning them on and I'm going from there. It's very detailed.
That's incredible. And how long have you been doing this, working in this particular way? Because, I mean, you're
Oh,
so expert. I have to imagine that you've been doing this for quite some time.
about 8 years. 8 years, and I've been retired for 6 of those years, so that's been good because it's I'm a kind of a type A person. I always have to have something going on, or I can't stand being bored. So I always have something that I love I can default to during a day that's not quite so full of things.
Well, retired from one career only to pick up and become a professional artist as your next career. So you
Yeah,
haven't really retired because obviously you are still working to create these. Now,
yeah.
I want to ask you who or what has been a real influence on you with regard to your artistry?
Well, I have an identical twin sister, and she was a very well trained actress. She has an MFA in theater arts and got a full scholarship at Penn State. She was really recognized. She worked with a lot of famous people, and she did that for 20 years. And, we're identical twins. And so we have so much in common. So there's been sparks of me showing that I have an artistic soul somewhere. I wrote a book that was a near bestseller. I've written grants. I've written, it takes a lot of creativity to write a grant and get them all, right?
I run a non-for-profit. Trust me, writing grants is a big part of what I do.
Yeah,
I totally appreciate that.
Yeah. So in crafting the language that you're selling it and making it making people, so anyway, I would say, has been my big inspiration, because along the way, I've asked her many times, well, what does art mean? And she had some great, tremendous guidance for me and encouraged me to keep going and saying, this is good. You're onto something. Don't stop. Keep going.
Well, Peggy, we feel so honored to have your work here at Marco Island Center for the Arts in our La Petite Gallery for the rest of the month of September. And I encourage all my friends out there to come on down. If you're here on the island, make a trip and stop into these art centers, say hi to us, but do come and see this exhibition. It is extraordinary, and one that, again, we are just thrilled to have under our roof. Peggy, thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing more of your work. You're not going to be a stranger here at the Marco Island Center for the Arts. For my friends out there, October is the beginning of the Art Center's 2021-2022 season, and we are expecting a marvelous year for you. In October, a couple of programs that are coming up that you might want to go and grab tickets for now. We are going to be doing an adult Halloween program on October 14th. It's a Thursday evening from 6 to 7 o'clock. We're bringing in folklorist and former paranormal seeker, explorer, investigator, Christopher Balsamo, who's going to be sharing with you haunted tales of Southwest Florida. So we encourage you, if you have any questions or any mysteries that you've experienced that you'd like Chris to maybe be able to address for you, email them to me, info@marcoislandart.org, and we'll pass it along to him before the event. Also, we're going to kick off our musical interlude series on October 21st with Gulf Shore Opera's Dueling Divas. It'll be a wonderful evening of music. We've got great music planned for you for the entire season, wonderful classes and workshops, and we can't wait to see you. Thank you again, Peggy, for joining us. It's just been wonderful. And to my friends out there, you are all very dear, very special to us, because you are part of our art family. And here at Marco Island Center for the Arts, we try every day, in every way, to be your art home. Goodbye, everybody.